So it's Thursday, September 11th, 2025. There's a lot of stuff going on. And I always say that this is not a politics podcast. This is a podcast that is supposed to be informative, entertaining, hopefully humorous, and enlightening. But that doesn't mean that just because I advertise a certain way that I'm immune to events in the world. And obviously, if I had something of substance to contribute to the ongoing conversation, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I would speak on it. But there isn't really anything that I could say that hasn't already been said. I don't condone violence. I condone open dialogue. I condone engaging with people that maybe you don't agree with. And those of you who knew me back in the day at Bev's Gym know that I agreed, I disagreed, I got into vociferous disagreements, but nobody ever got hurt. No one raised a fist to another person. And there are many people that I had vigorous disagreements with who I consider to be good friends to this day. Ideally, that's how these things should go. And I understand it's easy for me to sit here in my so-called ivory tower. I know that the real world doesn't always work that way, but that's just how I see it, how I look at it. And what I was thinking about is other moments in life as someone who is now 51 years old. The first time I experienced, just from the perspective at that point of a child learning of something horrendous that has happened that does not make sense, that where you hear it and it feels like a syntax error. So when I was 6, I got to school one day, and what I know now would have been December 9th, 1980. That was a Tuesday. And there are moments, and many of you maybe can identify, even if you're a lot younger than me, there are things that we remember as if there is something in our wiring that causes us to store certain things and that they're going to be kind of core memories, even if it's something terrible and something that doesn't directly impact us. It's not like a good memory, like climbing to the top of the Statue of Liberty. I posted a picture on social media of my father and I on Liberty Island when I was 6, and the Twin Towers in the background, 9/11, right? That's a core memory. That is a great memory. A small boy climbing to the top. I don't remember how many stories it was to the top of the, Liberty Island, the Statue of Liberty itself. Used to let people do that. I don't know if they still do. I haven't been there. I haven't been to Liberty Island in 14 years now that I think about it. It was summer of 2011, the last time that I was there. But I remember there was a chill in the air on December 9th, 1980. And it was the morning after John Lennon had been assassinated. I don't think that I had heard of him. I don't think that I knew the name, or if I did, I wasn't, oh, that's the musician. I was in first grade. I was only 6. And maybe I had heard some Beatles songs. Maybe I hadn't. Maybe I had listened to Imagine by John Lennon in a supermarket one day and it didn't connect. But what I knew was, and what I can still see in my mind's eye, 45 years later, almost 45 years, the administrators, the teachers, all of the adults in the school, they were either members of the silent generation like my dad, my mom, or they were boomers, I think. And they were all inconsolable. There was weeping, there was anger, there was just pure sadness. And I didn't understand. I don't know that I knew what the word assassination meant. I'm not sure. And certainly now I don't remember the thought process, but I remember the feeling of uneasiness that I had. That these people who were more or less taking care of us, the teachers were going to teach whatever lessons were going that day. We're going to go have library. We're going to go to, do gym or whatever it was that we had. But the atmosphere, the sense of dread and the heaviness in the air is not something, I remember that, even if the particulars of what it really was like at Fairfield Elementary on December 9, 1980. And the next terrible life event, world event that took place involving, in this case, an attempted assassination was Ronald Reagan about a year later when this lunatic, John Hinckley Jr., tried to kill Reagan. You know, and as we speak, there are people trying to figure out not only who the shooter was yesterday, but why. As if anybody's going to feel better if we get a certain answer. Is it this? Is it for that reason? Man is dead. There's nothing good. Nothing good can come out of this. What I remember about the Reagan thing was that, well, if you look at the video, the Secret Service agents, as morbid as this is, they did exactly what they're trained to do. I mean, this was not a drill. They're jumping towards where they think the bullet came from. They're jumping to protect the president. But in that instance, did it help when we found out why John Hinckley Jr. did that? And I remember hearing this. Why did he do it? Well, he was trying to impress Jodie Foster. He was what? He was what? He had no political issue with Ronald Reagan. He had a crush on an actress. That's why well, yeah, the guy was crazy. I understand. I get that. But there could be a search for meaning, and all you find is more meaningless. It is an unfortunate part of being human, is that we are always so curious, and we are always, I shouldn't say always, we are often disappointed if and when we finally get to the bottom of something. When we get the answers, might not be what we're looking for. And even if it is, what did we gain? What did we gain? Reagan made a full recovery. Thank goodness. That was, the Secret Service did an incredible job that day. But he was lucky. Guy got shot point blank. You know, that was really awful. And I remember other terrible events when I was a kid, when John Belushi apparently overdosed. And that was actually a teachable moment, where it was Miss Sullivan. I'm pretty sure that was second grade, where she explained to us. Now, you might argue nowadays a teacher could get in trouble for doing what she did, but she explained words to the effect of that he was somebody who had used drugs that he probably shouldn't have been using, and that's what killed him. She phrased it, if I remember correctly, very, very delicately, but she was basically saying, don't do drugs. That was the takeaway. Don't do drugs. This young man is now gone. I would say that 9/11 was the next really horrendous world event. And that's, number one, burned into the memory. For most people, whether Gen Xers and a lot of elder millennials and some not so elder millennials, you would be just about, if you were born on 9/11, you'd turn 24 today. It's just crazy that it's that many years ago. And especially for people who are now well into their 30s and up. And my age, I was 27 when 9/11 happened. And we all have stories from that day. But I remember that I was supposed to go that night into the city for a script reading, nothing that I had written, but I was working with a young writer, a little younger than me, maybe a couple of years, I think, who had written a book that he then turned into a screenplay. And I was going to, I guess you could call it like a table read is what they would have called it, to see how it played. And so that was going to be in the city that night, I think near Tribeca, but I'm not 100% pretty sure it was not that far from where I had, 4 years prior gone to school in Lower Manhattan at New York University. What made that almost, I don't know how it could be any worse, but it was such a beautiful day. September 11, 2001. It was such a beautiful day, at least where I was on Long Island. And the moment for me before the disaster that sticks out, that I will always remember, is I was just doing shopping. I was at King Cullen in Huntington, and I went to go check out. And how many times do we have normal conversation with a cashier or someone standing next to us in line, or somebody, oh, would you like me to help you get that from the top shelf? Normal stuff. As I was checking out, cashier turned to the window and said, "What a beautiful day." Yeah. If memory serves, it was in the low 80s. It was an unseasonably warm morning. Get your stuff, go home. And how many times, even now, the first thing you do when you come inside, maybe you put your groceries away, turn on the TV. And what I mentioned about syntax error, when something happens that on almost a cellular level, not even intellectually, on an instinctive level, this is not correct. This can't be right. Turning on the TV, morning, September 11, 2001. And the Trade Center, one of the towers, is burning. That's the image. That's the image for me, for somebody who was 40 or 50 miles away. That's what I saw. That's what I remember. And then running to turn on the radio and listening to Don Imus and the people that he was on with that came on to talk. And then it looks like a plane hit the other tower. And we think that this is not an accident. This is a terror attack. All so horrendous. And even if we weren't, not in New York, we weren't in danger, in imminent danger, it felt like it. It felt like the world was ending. And for people who are, let's say, under 25 now, and many people under 30, it's difficult. You might think I'm overstating the case in this instance. I'm just telling you what it felt like. And almost immediately, I remember wishing that had been, can we go back and redo this? Can we go back to yesterday? Without knowing anything else. This, to me, was the worst thing that had happened up to that point. You could say it's still the worst thing that's happened. But seeing the building on fire, and then other building get hit, and one building go down, and the other building go down. And I hadn't even thought of my dad, because, well, why would have I been worried about that at that point? Because, well, yeah, he took the train, but the Long Island Railroad and then the subway, it didn't occur to me that it could be a problem. So I wasn't worried about him. And then he called, and I was a little bit surprised. He said, "Oh, I'm okay. I actually was at the doctor this morning." He went to his dentist. I mean, again, you're doing normal person stuff, things that are everyday activities. My dad went to work, as he did, I don't even know how many thousands of times in his accounting career. He went to work, and his first stop was the dentist. They used to take him early. The doctor that he had, who was near Washington Square Park, he actually was across from the park. He was one of those dentists that he would accommodate his patients who had normal 9 to 5, or in the case of my dad, maybe 9 to 7, or whatever the case might be. And Dad was going to get there, and he got there in the 8 a.m. hour. And then he said, "Well, what do you do? We just had a terror attack. We're just gonna do a dental cleaning?" Like, even that seemed preposterous. But it wasn't until my dad called that I realized I probably should have been worried about my father, and I wasn't, because it didn't occur to me that there could be something wrong. Now, if I had known that he was going to see the dentist, I would have been afraid. But glad he called. And he ended up walking across the Brooklyn Bridge, as so many other people did. Just things that you can't plan for, things that you just can't imagine. And in that instance, I guess I was grateful that I didn't know anybody who died. I didn't have any family in either of the towers. I know people who did. How horrible, how horrific. It's all negative. And it is true from a sort of broader sense that in the social media era, negative gets more clicks. In general, real bad news and people's hot take on bad news is clickbait. And the sort of rage farming aspect of people taking takes that I don't think that they actually believe, but it will get them more notoriety, it will get them more clicks, and ultimately a little bit more do-re-mi. Now, I'm not against making a buck, you know that, but I don't like the idea of fostering and trying to deliberately antagonize people for clicks. And, you know, if I do that, you call me out on it, but I certainly, that is never my goal, and especially on a day like today, which is negative from every possible angle. I don't want to be polarizing. I'm not looking to make enemies here, just maybe go into little bits of history that a lot of young people are not as familiar with. The thing is, you can read in a book, you can check out images, you can watch horrifying video from 9/11, for example. The experience of seeing it as it happened, it's just, it does hit different. And it is a thing that we need to live through and experience certain things to truly understand what something means. I knew about death from when I was younger. I understood, I had object permanence by the time I was probably a year and a half or 2 years old. But there were a lot of things that I had not absorbed, that I hadn't experienced. I needed to learn for myself, because I could have given dictionary definitions of all kinds of different aspects of human experience. I could have given dictionary definitions, but my explanations would ring hollow because I hadn't actually experienced them. I hadn't seen them. I hadn't lived through them. When you're around long enough, you see a lot of really terrible shit. And the hope is that there is enough positive, that there is enough beauty. There are enough moments of grace, moments of genuine connection, of kindness. I don't know that it ever could make up for it. But it's certainly, that's what you hope for when you live through things like 9/11 and you didn't even think that your dad could be in trouble, and luckily he wasn't, but you know people who lost family. And then you see something like what happened yesterday, where so many people, you hate to say it, it's good that only one shot was fired. People, and I read reports from people who were there who said we thought it was a mass shooting, because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't it have been another Vegas out of context? Why wouldn't it have been something horrific like Orlando or any of the other mass shooting situations? Just so much negative, so many bad things, and it is also true that there are people who will use humor or try to use humor to it's not that you don't care. I get it. Now, look, I'm not sharing any memes. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't immediately, I'm not going to get angry if somebody uses humor to try to cope, because it is, and it can be, a powerful coping mechanism. And there is so much negativity. As a younger person, really well into my 30s, I took almost everything too seriously. And I was the sort of personality that would stress over events and circumstances way beyond my control, things that I really didn't have much to do with. As I've gotten older, as I moved out of my 30s into my 40s and beyond, I have been able to quiet my brain down, because people like me, deeply introspective, on the autism spectrum, even though I was never officially diagnosed, but very clearly, yes, and neurodivergent, it is possible to become preoccupied and focus on certain things that don't directly relate to your daily life, your profession, your family, and you can become obsessed. You can go down rabbit holes, be very difficult to pull yourself out of, or have someone pull yourself out of. What I'm trying to say here is that you need to take breaks from the negativity, especially times like this. Emotions run hot. There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of fear with good reason. There is a lot of trying to make sense of true horror and terror. And you can ask questions like, is it okay to have material like this freely distributed? Is that even okay? But then again, 9/11, we watched it happen. We saw it in real time. That was not for clicks. That was not sensationalism. That wasn't people deliberately being trolls to get clicks. That was everybody being scared and feeling vulnerable and wondering if this was really going to be the end of the world. I guess I just didn't. You sometimes don't know how profound an event is when it first takes place. And with 9/11, we all knew within 15 minutes, the world as we know it has ended. And I was 10 years from being born when Kennedy was assassinated, but for an entire generation of people from some boomers, but certainly the previous generations, that was their moment. And look, we've heard a lot of phrases over time at different times where the stakes were not like Kennedy assassination or 9/11 or the Lennon assassination, which that was a cataclysmic event of a different sort. I know that. But we have to take stock, take heed, and we have to take care of ourselves. And it is easy to lose yourself in all of the negativity. And I would say at times like this, regardless of your general worldview, take more time for yourself, more self-care. Eat the damn piece of chocolate cake, as Emma Stone once famously said. Life is short. Eat the damn chocolate cake. Do something nice for yourself. You like to go bowling just out of nowhere. You know how long it's been since I've gone bowling? I have a bowling alley a mile away. I could go bowling, take a night, roll a couple of games, wonder if I could even break 100 anymore. I used to be close to a 200 average back in my old days when something like that meant something. Now with the way scoring is out of control, a 190 average, 2 thumbs down, not very good anymore. But take care of yourselves. This is true. Make time for yourself. If you're, let's say, a father, a mother, you have a family, spend a little extra time with your kids. If you have grandparents still in your life, give them a call. These things seem insignificant, and I know this also. As a younger person, I would have been very dismissive of this idea. Not that I wouldn't have spent time with somebody, but of doing this, this is bullshit. My instinct was always to be dismissive. This is bullshit. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. I believe that it does. And anyone who just talking to them will bring you comfort, will make you feel better, even if it's just a temporary salve. Do it. No harm can come of making that phone call, of even sending a text message to a person who you maybe haven't spoken to in a while. There's no blueprint for dealing with tragedy, whether it's personal or whether it's a tragedy or tragic events that have taken place in the world. Everyone has to deal with them, with terrible things in their own way. But reaching out and communicating and connecting with others, I think, is the only thing to do, and the best thing that one can do for their mental health, for their physical health too. You have to protect your peace, and just don't go down any real negative rabbit holes that you can't pull yourself out of. Try to reduce the volume a little bit. And I don't know how I was able to do it. Honestly, I don't have any idea. It just happened slowly. I started caring less and less about what other people were saying. I began to lose the instinct and the urge to fight and argue. When I say fight, I don't mean this. I mean the back and forth. At a certain point, it just stopped. It doesn't mean that I stopped caring, but I stopped caring to mix it up with people, to yell at somebody or have someone yell at me. Not worth it. Unless it's something that literally matters to you, like you're arguing about your livelihood, like some guy wants a fire, and you go fuck yourself. Yeah, don't say that. That'll probably get you fired right there. But you got to reduce the volume, and you have to keep an eye on your own mental health and the people around you, the people who are struggling. Reach out a helping hand. Yeah, it's a cliche. You don't know what other people are going through, but I'm sure there are a lot of people. 9/11 is the worst possible remembrance day because they did lose family. If you know someone, just say hi, reach out to them, and maybe have a little extra ice cream, have a little extra dessert, order pizza, go off if you're on a diet. I'm not telling you to go off a contest diet, but maybe order a pizza, or heaven forbid, get some fast food. You know how long it's been since I've eaten McDonald's or Burger King? It's been I don't even know how many years. Taco Bell, yes. Taco Bell, yes. I have Taco Bell every once in a while. But this is a somber day, pretty much all around. But just take care of yourselves. And I'll be back soon with hopefully a more jovial, silly, fun, and entertaining episode real soon. I'm not even going to do any sort of a conventional wrap up, but on this September 11th, 2025. Peace out. Take care.